My name is Margaret Greer. I'm 63 years old. And for most of my life, I believed that when something broke, really broke, you would hear it. A door slamming, a voice raised, a moment so loud and undeniable that you could point to it and say, there. That's when everything fell apart. I was wrong, because the worst kind of breaking doesn't make a sound. It happens quietly, in hesitation, in the things you don't say, in the one phone call you don't make. And by the time you realize what you've done, the person you lost is already gone. We have 2 children, Evelyn Greer, 36, and Caleb Greer, 33. If you asked anyone who knew us, they would say we were a normal family. They would be wrong. Evelyn was our firstborn, the kind of child who made parenting look easy. She didn't just succeed, she constructed her life like one of the bridges she designs. Precise, stable, unshakable. Top of her class, hired at 23, bought her own condo before she turned 26. She never asked for help, not once. And we told ourselves that meant she didn't need us. That was the first lie. Caleb was different. He needed everything. Every year, it was something new. A job that didn't work out. An apartment he got evicted from. A car he wrecked. A mistake that came with a price tag. And we paid it. $7,000 for rent. $4,000 for the car. $3,000 for a lawyer. $9,000 for rehab he left after 12 days. We told ourselves we were helping him. That he just needed more time. More support. More chances. We gave and gave and gave. Because Caleb needed us. And Evelyn didn't. That was the second lie. By the time Evelyn turned 36, she had built a life most people spend decades chasing. And she had done it alone. She never complained. Never asked why her brother got everything while she got silence. She just kept building. That's who she was. She was engaged to a man named Daniel Hart. They had been together for 3 years. Engaged for 6 months. The wedding was planned for October. Small venue. 80 guests. Evelyn paid for everything herself. Of course she did. Daniel was kind, steady, the kind of man who made you feel like things would always be okay. He fit into our family so easily it felt like he had always been there. Sunday dinners, holidays, quiet conversations in the kitchen. I loved him. My husband loved him. Even Caleb loved him. Especially Caleb. The call came on a Tuesday night, 4 months before the wedding. I remember the exact way the kitchen light looked. Too bright, like it was exposing something I wasn't ready to see. Evelyn's voice was wrong. Not angry. Not crying. Just distant. Like she had already stepped outside of her own life and was calling me from somewhere far away. She said, "Mom, Caleb has been sleeping with Lila." I frowned. "Lila?" "Daniel's ex," she said. "The one he dated before me." My hand tightened around the edge of the counter. Evelyn continued, her voice steady in a way that made it worse. "It's been going on for months." I couldn't find words fast enough. "Evelyn, honey, maybe there's—" "She's pregnant," she said. The room went silent. "She says the baby is Caleb's. She says she wants to be with him." Behind me, my husband, Murray, grabbed the back of a chair like he needed something to hold on to. Evelyn didn't pause. "I need you and Dad to do one thing." Her voice sharpened, just slightly. "Call him. Tell him what he did is wrong." Just that. Not fix it, not solve it, not make it better. Just tell her brother he was wrong. I should have said yes. I should have said, "Of course we will. What he did is unforgivable. We stand with you." But instead, I looked at Murray. And I said the sentence that destroyed everything. "Evelyn, this is terrible, but there's a baby involved now. We need to think about the whole family." Silence. Then, "There's a baby involved," she repeated. "That's your response?" Murray stepped in quickly. "We're not taking sides," he said. "We're just trying to figure this out." Evelyn let out a slow breath. "Caleb says he loves her," I added, grasping at something that would make this less ugly. "He says it's real." There was a pause. Then Evelyn said something I will hear for the rest of my life. "Caleb says a lot of things." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't break. That would have been easier. "He said rehab was working when he walked out after 12 days. He said the apartment was fine before he got evicted. He says whatever he needs to say to get through the next conversation. And you believe him every time." I opened my mouth, closed it. She continued. "He's not struggling, Mom. He's taking. He's taken money, time, chances, and now he's taken my life." Murray's jaw tightened. "That's not fair," he said. "We love you both." "Then prove it." Her voice was sharp now, clear. "Call him, right now. Tell him he's wrong, not complicated, not both sides, just wrong." We didn't call him. Not that night. We told ourselves we needed time. Needed to hear both sides. Needed to think. But the truth was simpler than that. We had never held Caleb accountable for anything. And we weren't going to start now. Not even for her. Evelyn called the next morning. "Did you call him?" I hesitated. "We're going to talk to him today. You needed one night," she said quietly. I gave you one night. I closed my eyes. The silence said everything. You didn't call him, she continued. You won't, because you never have. Murray tried again. Evelyn, just give us time. I gave you 36 years. That landed like a weight in my chest. 36 years of being the daughter who didn't need anything. 36 years of watching you give everything to him while I built my life alone. Her voice softened. That was the worst part. I needed one phone call. A pause. You couldn't make it. I felt something slipping. Something I couldn't grab. Please, I said, don't do this. Don't walk away from your family. And then she said it. The sentence that split our lives into before and after. You walked away from me the second you hesitated. A breath. I'm just making it official. The line went dead. We called Caleb after that, not to confront him, to hear his side, because that's what we always did. And that was the moment we chose. When Caleb came over that afternoon, he didn't look ashamed. That is one of the details that still wakes me up. Not because shame would have fixed anything. It wouldn't have. But at least it would have meant he understood the size of what he had done. At least it would have meant there was a line somewhere inside him that he knew he had crossed. Instead, he walked into our kitchen with his shoulders tense, his face drawn into something that wanted to pass for pain, and said, I know this looks bad. Looks bad. As if this were an awkward misunderstanding. As if he had dented Evelyn's car, not crawled into the middle of her future and ripped it open with both hands. Murray folded his arms and leaned against the counter. Tell us exactly what happened. Caleb dragged a hand through his hair. It just happened. Daniel and Lila were over a long time ago, and Lila and I kept running into each other. We talked. She understood me. One thing led to another. One thing led to another. People always talk like betrayal is weather, like it rolls in on its own, like nobody chose it. I remember asking, for how long? He looked away. That told me before his answer did. A few months. A few months. Not one mistake. Not one drunken night. Not one moment of weakness. A pattern. Repeated, hidden, sustained. Long enough for lies to become routine. And the baby? Murray asked. Caleb nodded quickly. She says it's mine. She says, even then, it should have struck me how thin all of it was. How much of our family's destruction was hanging on what Caleb said and what Lila said and what we wanted desperately to believe. But when people are invested in a story, they protect it, even when it's rotten. She wants to be with me, he added. Mom, I know it's messy, but I love her. I can still hear Evelyn's voice from the night before. Caleb says a lot of things. And still, I let his words settle into the room as if they had weight. Because love sounded nobler than lust. Love sounded complicated. Love gave us something to hide behind. Murray rubbed his forehead. Does Daniel know? That question came out wrong because even in that moment, even with the wreckage already scattered in front of us, Murray's instinct was still to orient the conversation around Daniel and Lila, not Evelyn. Not our daughter. Not the person who had called us with her voice already half dead. Caleb nodded. Yeah, Evelyn knows too. He said it too casually, like this was already old news to him, like the worst of it was behind us, because he had confessed and therefore had moved on. Caleb, I said, your sister asked us to call you and tell you this was wrong. He stared at me. Then he said, and? Just that, and? No apology, no remorse, no grief over what he had done to his sister. Just irritation, like Evelyn had made things harder than they needed to be. Murray straightened. It is wrong. The words came late, weak, too little and already contaminated by hesitation. But Caleb only sighed, sat down at the table, and said, I know you have to say that. But the baby changes things. The baby changes things. That became our family religion. A sentence we used to excuse cowardice. A sentence that let us pretend morality had become too complicated to name. A sentence that took Evelyn's devastation and turned it into an inconvenience beside a pregnancy. I asked, what about Evelyn? He gave the smallest shrug. She'll be angry for a while. For a while. He said it with the confidence of a person who had spent his whole life believing that consequences were temporary. Bills were temporary because we paid them. Mistakes were temporary because we cleaned them up. Loss was temporary because somebody else carried the cost. Then he said the sentence that should have slapped me awake. She always lands on her feet. He meant it as praise, or maybe justification, maybe both. But what he was really saying was this: she's strong, so we can afford to hurt her. And that is exactly what we did. We spent the next 2 days constructing a lie we could live inside. We told ourselves that if there was a child coming, then anger had to become secondary, that grown people had to think bigger, that Evelyn, practical Evelyn, disciplined Evelyn, reasonable Evelyn, would eventually understand. We called it maturity. We called it keeping the family together. It was surrender dressed up as wisdom. Then Murray had the idea for the dinner. He called it a discussion. I called it healing. Evelyn would later call it what it really was, an ambush. We invited my sister Lucille, Murray's brother Kent, Caleb, Lila, and Evelyn. 6 people on one side of an argument, and our daughter alone on the other. When she walked in that evening, she stopped in the doorway. I still see her there sometimes, dark coat still on, keys in one hand, face pale, composed, unreadable, in the terrifying way people become unreadable when they are past emotion and entering clarity. Then her eyes moved across the room. Me, Murray, Lucille, Kent, Caleb, and Lila. Lila was sitting at our dining table with both hands folded over her stomach, like the pregnancy had already become a shield. Evelyn didn't sit down right away. She looked at me and said very calmly, "You brought her here." I tried to stand, to soften it. "Honey, please, just sit. We need to talk." "No," she said. "Answer the question. You brought her here?" Lila looked down immediately, tears already gathering, but I remember even then thinking her tears arrived too fast, as if she knew exactly what face to wear for sympathy. Murray said, "We're trying to settle this as a family." Evelyn laughed once. I had never heard a laugh sound like that. It was small, sharp, empty of humor. It sounded like something snapping. "As a family," she repeated. "You invited the brother who betrayed me and the woman helping him do it, sat them across from me in my parents' house, and you're calling this family?" Lucille jumped in first. She always hated discomfort unless she was the one causing it. "Evelyn, sweetheart, no one is saying what happened wasn't terrible." "Then say it," Evelyn said. Lucille blinked. "What?" "Say what Caleb did." Silence. Evelyn turned to Murray. "Dad?" Murray shifted in his seat. "You know it was wrong." "No," she said. "Not, say it." Kent looked miserable. He kept staring at the table, tapping one finger against his water glass. Caleb checked his phone. That detail has lived under my skin for 2 years. While his sister stood there with her whole future still bleeding out in the room, he checked his phone. I said, "We're not here to make this worse." Evelyn looked at me slowly, and there it was again, that look that would later haunt me more than any shouting could have. Not rage. Recognition. As if she were watching a long-standing private theory become undeniable. "You're making it permanent," she said. Then she finally sat down, but only because she was choosing her battlefield. We talked first, or rather, we talked around it. The baby, the future, mistakes, complications, forgiveness. The kinds of words people use when they want to handle something ugly without touching the ugliness itself. Then Lila began to cry. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," she whispered. Evelyn turned to her. "That is incredible." Lila's face tightened. "I mean it." "No, I know," Evelyn said. "That's what makes it incredible. You slept with my brother for months while I was planning a wedding, and you still found a way to narrate yourself as a tragic person." "Evelyn," I said sharply. She swung toward me. "What? Is she the victim now?" Caleb finally looked up. "Don't do that." "Don't do what?" Evelyn shot back. "Tell the truth?" He leaned forward, annoyed now. "I didn't plan this." "No," she said. "You just kept making choices until planning became unnecessary." Kent cleared his throat. "Maybe we should all lower the temperature." Evelyn looked at him, and for a second I thought she might cry. Instead, she smiled. "That was worse. Uncle Kent, with respect, the temperature in this room was set the moment my parents decided protecting Caleb from discomfort mattered more than standing beside me." Nobody answered. Because what could anyone say? That she was wrong? She wasn't. Murray tried again. "We are standing beside you." Evelyn stared at him. "No," she said softly. "You're standing near me while facing him." That sentence seemed to move through the room like cold. Then she stood. Not dramatically, not suddenly, just with the quiet finality of someone arriving at a verdict. "I need every person here to hear me clearly," she said. Caleb rolled his eyes, and Lucille murmured, "Don't be extreme." Evelyn ignored them. "I will never forgive Caleb." Caleb scoffed, but she didn't even glance at him. "I will never accept Lila. I will never play aunt to this baby. I will never sit at this table and pretend betrayal becomes holy the second someone gets pregnant." Her eyes landed on me. "Then Murray, if you choose them, you lose me. Not for a while, not until I calm down, permanently." I stood so quickly my chair scraped the floor. "Please don't say that." "Why?" she asked. "Because it sounds cruel. Truth usually does when it finally shows up." My chest started to tighten. "Evelyn, we love you." And then she delivered the line that stripped me bare. "You love me like a safety net." The room went still. She stepped closer, not yelling, not crying, which somehow made it impossible to hide from. "You love me like the child who will always survive your neglect. the one who will keep functioning, the one who will forgive because she's strong, because she's reasonable, because she doesn't need as much. You love me in theory, Mom. But every time reality asks you you choose him. I reached for her sleeve. That's not true. She looked down at my hand, then back at my face. It is so true, she said, that all of you are sitting here in proof of it. Then she looked at Caleb. He had finally put his phone away. For the first time that night, there was a flicker of uncertainty in him. Too late. You win, she told him. That's what this family has taught you, isn't it? Take enough, lie enough, wait long enough, and eventually Mom and Dad will turn your wreckage into someone else's responsibility. He opened his mouth. Evelyn. No, don't say my name like we're still connected. Lila started crying harder. Lucille said, "This is too much." Murray said, "Please sit down." I said, "We can work through this." But Evelyn was already reaching for her coat. At the front door, I followed her into the hallway. I grabbed her sleeve just like I had the night before on the phone, only now I could feel how still she was under my hand. "Please," I whispered, "don't walk away from your family." She turned and looked at me, and there it was. Not anger, acceptance. The face of a daughter who had stopped hoping. "You already walked away from me," she said. "I'm just the one leaving the building." Then, more quietly, more devastatingly, "I was a person before I was the strong one. You just noticed the strong one because it was more convenient." She slipped her arm free, walked out the door, got into her truck, and drove away. I stood there watching the red taillights disappear down the street, while behind me, inside the house, the family I had chosen sat in warm light around a table that suddenly felt diseased. After a long moment, Caleb said from the dining room, "She'll calm down." I wiped my face and went back inside. No one said anything for a while. Lila kept crying. Lucille muttered that Evelyn was overreacting. Kent looked sick. Murray poured himself a drink with a hand that shook badly enough to spill some on the counter. And Caleb, our son, the one at the center of the blast radius, sat back in his chair like the worst part was over. It wasn't. That dinner was the funeral, not the fight. The first month after Evelyn left, the town learned the shape of the story. Not because we told anyone, because Evelyn did. Before she disappeared, she made calls. To Kent, to Lucille, to our pastor at Grace Hill, to an old college friend who still knew half the county. She told them what happened plainly, without embellishment, which made it impossible to defend ourselves. There is very little armor against a simple truth. Kent called Murray the next day. I heard my husband's side from the kitchen. We were trying to keep the family together. Then silence. Then Murray's face changed, hardened, then collapsed slightly. After he hung up, he said Kent told him this. "You don't keep a family together by seating the wounded person across from the people who wounded her and demanding grace. That isn't healing. That's coercion." Lucille called me too, furious at first that Evelyn had dragged the family through mud. But underneath her indignation, there was something else. Shame. She kept repeating, "She made me sound heartless." I didn't say what I should have. I didn't say, "Maybe because you were." At church the following Sunday, Pastor Williams pulled Murray aside. I knew before he spoke that Evelyn had called him because the pity in his eyes had arrived early. He didn't lecture us. That might have been easier. He just said, "There are times when parents confuse mercy with avoidance. One child needing more doesn't mean the other child can survive less." We sat through the entire service under the weight of that sentence. Around us, people smiled differently. Too carefully, too quickly. The Deckers stopped asking us to lunch. Mrs. Hollis hugged me with that performative softness people use when they know a scandal but want credit for pretending they don't. Small towns don't need details. Shape is enough. And the shape was this. They chose the wrong child and the right one left. 6 months later, through a friend of a friend, we learned Evelyn had moved to Charlotte. Transferred offices, new apartment, new number, no social media, no forwarding address. A clean cut. Murray wanted to drive there immediately. I said, "If we show up uninvited, she'll call the police." Because I knew Evelyn, really knew her, maybe for the first time, only after we lost her. She had meant every word. Still, we tried. We called her old number, disconnected. We called her old office. She no longer worked there. We drove by her condo, sold. At month 8, Murray hired a private investigator, $2,800 to find the daughter we had pushed out with our own hands. He found her in 11 days. Senior structural engineer, new address, new life. I wrote her a 5-page letter. Apology, explanation, pleading. It came back unopened. Returned to sender. Murray wrote one too. Returned. Then Caleb wrote one. 1 page. I read it before he mailed it. He had written, "I miss you. Lila and I are trying to build something real. I want you to meet your nephew when he's born." I remember staring at that line, "Your nephew," as if naming a child could erase what conceived it. Returned unopened. She didn't read a single word from any of us. In July, Lila gave birth to a little boy. Bennett, 7 pounds, 6 ounces. I was in the delivery room. I held him 10 minutes after he was born. And while I looked down at his face, I told myself I saw traces of Caleb. Something in the nose, maybe the chin. Some familiar angle I could point to and call proof. Now I know I was looking at desperation, not resemblance. Desperation. Because by then, if Bennett was real, then maybe our choice had meaning. Maybe something beautiful had come out of something rotten. Maybe Evelyn had not been sacrificed for nothing. That is how people live with themselves. They keep adjusting the story until they can sleep inside it. We bought a crib, a changing table, paint for the nursery, a rocking chair Murray insisted was sturdy, though it wobbled slightly to the left. And every time I stood in that room, arranging blankets and folded baby clothes, there was a thought I kept pushing down before it could fully form. Evelyn would have built a better life with less noise than all of this. But Evelyn was gone, and we were busy pretending the child left in our arms could fill the space of the one we had lost. For 22 months, we lived inside a story that only worked if no one asked the wrong questions. And we made sure no one did. We became grandparents. That's how we introduced ourselves again, quietly reshaping our identity in a way that felt softer, more acceptable than the truth. Bennett's grandparents. It sounded warm, whole, forgiving. It sounded like a second chance. We watched his first steps. His first word, "da," which Caleb insisted meant dad, even though Bennett said it while pointing at a lamp. We threw his first birthday party. A cake with blue frosting, balloons tied too tightly to the chairs. Too many people crowded into the living room trying to convince themselves this was what a happy family looked like. Caleb blew out the candle for him. "Make a wish, buddy," he said, laughing. Bennett didn't understand. But we clapped anyway. We always clapped. During those 22 months, Caleb's life followed the same pattern it always had. Because people don't change just because a new role sounds important. He lost his warehouse job in the 4th month. "Supervisor had it out for me," he said. He had shown up late 3 times in 1 week, argued with management, walked out before they could fire him. But in his version, he was the victim. He always was. He found another job at an auto parts store. $14.50 an hour. Part-time. It lasted 7 months. Then his hours were cut to 12 a week because he kept calling in sick on Mondays. "Bad luck," he said. We nodded. We always nodded. Lila didn't work. She said she wanted to stay home with Bennett. Said daycare was too expensive. Said it didn't feel right leaving him with strangers. She said a lot of things that sounded like reasons and felt like excuses. But by then, we were too invested to question her. Because questioning her meant questioning everything. So we paid. Rent, $1,350 a month. Car payment when they fell behind, $480. Groceries, twice a month. Diapers in bulk from Costco, delivered every 2 weeks because Caleb said they couldn't keep up. Murray started writing the numbers down once. On the back of a utility bill, $4,800 a month. That's what it cost to keep their life standing. $4,800 every month for 22 months. I remember staring at that number. Then I folded the paper and put it in a drawer. Because numbers tell the truth in a way people don't. And I wasn't ready for that truth yet. We told ourselves we were helping Bennett, that it wasn't about Caleb anymore, that the baby deserved stability, that we were doing the right thing. We said it so many times it started to feel real, and sometimes in quiet moments it almost did. When Bennett laughed, when he fell asleep on my chest, when his tiny hand wrapped around my finger like I was something solid in his world. Those moments felt like proof. Proof that something good had come from all of this. Proof that maybe Evelyn would understand one day. Proof that we hadn't destroyed everything. But there were cracks. Small at first. Easy to ignore. Caleb still borrowed money without asking. Still avoided responsibility. Still treated every crisis like something that happened to him, not something he created. And Lila, there was something about her that never quite settled. She was attentive when we were watching. Grateful when we were paying. Emotional when things got tense. But there was a distance behind her eyes. A calculation. Like she was always measuring what she needed to say to keep things smooth. I ignored it. We both did. Because by then, the story required her to be sincere. If she wasn't, then nothing was. Evelyn never called, never wrote, never appeared. She became something abstract. A name we didn't say too often. A chair at the table we didn't move, but didn't look at either. Until the day everything collapsed. It started quietly. Like everything else, Caleb and Lila had been trying for another baby. 6 months. No luck. At first, they joked about it. Timing. stress, bad luck. Then Lila suggested seeing a doctor. Just to check, she said. The appointment was routine. Tests for both of them. Standard. Nothing dramatic. Lila's results came back first. Normal. Healthy. No issues. Caleb's took longer. He said it was just paperwork. Backlog. Nothing to worry about. 3 weeks ago, he called me from the parking lot of the clinic. I could hear the air in his chest. Too fast. Too shallow. Mom, he said, the doctor says I can't have kids. I sat down slowly. What do you mean? He said, my sperm count is basically 0, not low, 0. He said it's congenital, something I was born with. The words didn't land all at once. They came apart. Separate. Unstable. I tried to force them into something that made sense. That's not possible, I said. Bennett doesn't look like me, Caleb cut in. His voice cracked. You kept saying he did. Everyone did. But he doesn't. He doesn't look like any of us. My hand tightened around the phone. Maybe the test is wrong. Get another one. I did, he said. Same result. 0 viable sperm. Permanent. Lifelong. Not caused by injury. Not recent. He had never been able to have children. Not once. Not ever. The world doesn't always collapse with noise. Sometimes it just tilts. And nothing feels stable anymore. Mom, Caleb said, his voice breaking completely now. If I can't have kids, then Bennett isn't mine. I didn't answer, because the truth had already arrived, and it didn't need me to say it out loud to exist. That night, Caleb confronted Lila. He told me later what happened, or at least what he could remember through the shouting. She broke almost immediately, collapsed into tears, shaking, apologizing. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. And then she told him the truth. The baby's father wasn't Caleb. It wasn't Daniel. It wasn't anyone we had ever considered. It was a man named Adrian Cole, a coworker, someone she had been seeing before Caleb, before Daniel, before all of it. Not a mistake, not an accident, a pattern. He was always there, she said. Caleb told me her voice was barely audible, like even she couldn't believe she had kept it hidden this long. Adrian was constant. Caleb was easy. Daniel was safe. Easy. Safe. Constant. She had categorized their lives like options. I didn't know you were infertile, she said. I thought the timing made sense. I needed it to be yours. Everything was already ruined. I couldn't undo it. She had built a lie on top of a lie, and we had built our family on top of hers. Caleb demanded a DNA test, drove to the lab himself, waited 5 days. 5 days of silence stretched across the house like something suffocating. Murray didn't speak much. I barely slept. The nursery felt different. The walls the same color. The crib still standing. But something underneath it all had shifted, like the truth was already there, waiting to be confirmed. The results came back. 0% match. Caleb wasn't Bennett's father. Not even close. When he called me, he wasn't crying. He was screaming. She lied to me, he said. She lied to all of us. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, like that could hold him together. The baby isn't mine, he said. I gave up everything for her. I gave up Evelyn for her. There it was. Finally. The connection. The cost. And none of it was real, he continued, his voice breaking into something jagged and raw. The relationship, the baby, the family, you kept telling me it was real. It wasn't real. None of it was real. I closed my eyes, because there was one truth he hadn't said yet, but I could feel it coming. Evelyn saw it, he whispered. That sentence hit harder than all the rest. Not the infertility. Not Adrian. Not even the lie. Evelyn had seen the pattern. She had seen Caleb for who he was, seen Lila for who she was, seen us for what we were doing. And she had walked away. Not because she was dramatic, because she was the only one who wasn't blind. That night, Murray sat at the kitchen table, the same chairs, the same place where we had told our daughter to forgive something unforgivable. He stared at his hands for a long time. Then he said very quietly, "We lost Evelyn for this." I didn't answer, because there was nothing left to defend, nothing left to explain. We hadn't just chosen wrong. We had built our entire family around that wrong choice. And now the truth had arrived. Too late. The house felt different after that. Quieter. Heavier. Like something had settled into the walls. And for the first time in 2 years, I looked at Evelyn's empty chair and understood exactly why it was still empty, because we had made sure of it. The house didn't feel like a home after the DNA results came back. It felt like evidence. Every room held something that no longer made sense. The nursery. The framed photos, the tiny socks folded in drawers, the rocking chair that still leaned slightly to the left. All of it built around a story that had collapsed. Caleb stopped pretending first. He came home the night the results arrived and went straight to the nursery. Murray heard the noise before I did. Wood splintering. something heavy hitting the wall, a sound that didn't belong in a house unless something inside it had already broken beyond repair. We found him sitting in the middle of the room, surrounded by pieces of the crib. He had torn it apart with his bare hands. "I gave up everything for her," he said again, but quieter this time. Like the anger had burned out and left something hollow behind. "I gave up Evelyn for nothing." No one corrected him. No one told him it wasn't nothing, because now we knew. It was worse than nothing. It was a lie. Lila was gone by then. She had packed a bag. Taken Bennett. Left without asking, without explaining further. The nursery stayed exactly the way we had built it, except for the broken crib. Caleb tried to find Adrian. Drove to the office where Lila used to work. Asked the front desk if Adrian Cole still worked there. The receptionist hesitated, then said he had transferred. 4 months ago. 4 months. Before the fertility appointment. Before the questions. Before the truth. Did she know? Caleb asked her. The receptionist didn't answer, but she paused long enough that she didn't need to. Lila knew. Adrian knew. They had both known. And they had planned their exit. We weren't part of their story. We were just the place they stayed until it was convenient to leave. That realization settled into me slowly. Like something sinking. Heavy. Irreversible. Later that week, I called Lila's mother. Her name was Gail. I didn't know what I expected. Denial. Anger. Defense. Instead, she sounded tired. "I found out last week," she said. "About Adrian?" "Yes." I gripped the phone tighter. "You knew about him before?" There was a pause. Then, "He was there before your children," she said quietly. My stomach dropped. "Before both of them?" "Yes. 6 years. On and off. Adrian had been first. Before Daniel. Before Caleb." "What were my children to her?" I asked. Gail hesitated. "I'm sorry," she said. "She told me they were easy." Easy. The word landed like something sharp. Evelyn. The daughter who built everything herself. The one who asked for nothing. The one who trusted. Easy. Caleb. The son who took everything. Who believed everything. Who never questioned anything that felt good in the moment. Also easy. 2 completely different people. Used in 2 completely different ways. By the same woman. And we had helped her do it. Because we pushed Evelyn out. And we funded Caleb's illusion. The church heard, of course. It always does. The same quiet spread of information that had carried Evelyn's story 2 years earlier now carried this one. Only this time, no one pretended not to know the details. Pastor Williams didn't pull us aside after service. He called. "I heard about Caleb," he said gently. "About the baby." I stared at the kitchen table. "There's not much family left to pray for," I said. He paused. "Evelyn is still your daughter." I let out a hollow laugh. "She hasn't answered a phone call in 2 years. She's everyone's daughter except mine now." He didn't argue. Some truths don't need to be debated. Murray changed after the results. Not loudly. Not dramatically. He just stopped. Stopped talking. Stopped initiating conversations. Stopped reacting. He sat in his chair. Watched the news. Ate when I put food in front of him. Didn't comment. Didn't ask. Didn't engage. It wasn't silence as a choice. It was silence as damage. Because for 2 years, he had believed we made the right decision. That we protected Caleb. That we kept the family together. The DNA test took that belief and removed it completely. There was nothing left to stand on. Caleb moved back into his old room. 33 years old. Back in the same space where everything had always been easier. No fiancé. No child. No sister. Just a record. A report. And the consequences of a life built without accountability. The nursery door stayed open. I didn't fix the crib. Didn't pack anything away. I couldn't. Because it felt like erasing something would make it less real. And I needed it to stay real. Needed to see it. Every day. Evelyn's chair stayed at the table. Clean. Empty. Untouched. I didn't let Caleb sit in it. He didn't ask. That chair wasn't furniture anymore. It was a marker of who we lost. 3 weeks after the DNA results, Murray finally said something. Just one sentence. "Call her." I stared at him. "He won't answer," I said. He nodded. "Try anyway." So I did. I called the number the private investigator had given us. The one connected to her new life. Her new city. Her new beginning. It rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then her voice. Calm. Professional. Distant. "You've reached Evelyn Greer. Leave a message." I didn't speak right away. Because for 2 years, I had imagined this moment. And now that it was here, I didn't know how to fit everything into words. Then I started. "Evelyn, it's Mom." My voice shook. "I know you won't call back. I know you don't owe me anything. But I need you to know something." I took a breath that didn't feel like it reached my lungs. "Bennett isn't Caleb's." Silence on the other end. Just the quiet hum of a recorded line. "He never was," I continued. "Caleb is infertile. He always has been. Lila was seeing someone else the entire time." My throat tightened. The baby we chose over you isn't our grandchild. There it was. The truth. Stripped down to its ugliest form. We sacrificed you for a lie, I said. My voice broke then. Finally. Everything you said that night, you were right. About Caleb, about her, about us. I gripped the phone harder, like I could hold on to something that was already gone. We chose wrong, I whispered. We always chose wrong. I looked at the empty chair, at the space where she used to sit, at the place we told her to forgive something unforgivable. And now we're sitting in a house with a son who was being lied to, a baby who was never ours, and an empty seat where you used to be. I wiped my face, but it didn't matter. The words kept coming. Too late. All of them too late. I'm sorry, I said. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't bring you back. But I need you to know that we see it now. We see what we did. My voice softened. I love you, I always have. A pause. Then the truth I hadn't said before. I just loved you wrong. The line clicked. Voicemail ended. 2 minutes. 2 minutes to say everything I should have said 2 years ago. And I still ran out of time. She hasn't called back. It's been 3 weeks. Cody, Caleb, barely leaves his room. Murray barely leaves his chair. And I sit at this table every night, staring at that empty seat, replaying the last thing she said to me. I'm not a safety net anymore, Mom. I'm a person. She was always a person. I just couldn't see her through the noise of saving him. We had 2 children. We chose one. We lost the other. And the one we chose couldn't give us grandchildren, couldn't hold his life together, and spent 2 years raising a child that was never his. Every lie has a cost. Lila's lie cost Caleb fatherhood. Caleb's choices cost Evelyn her family. And our choices cost us our daughter. Somewhere 900 miles away, Evelyn is building a new life. A better one. A quieter one. A real one. And here, there is a house, a broken crib, an empty chair, and the kind of silence that only comes after everything that mattered is gone. That's the cost of choosing wrong. You don't just lose the person you let go. You find out the one you held on to was never worth the price.